Okay, so getting back into our coverage over Age of Apocalypse, we're going to pick up with X-Men issue number 2. Now, guys, here's the thing, because just in case you do have anybody who's just joining us in the middle of our coverage of this event, I kind of want to briefly explain who the world is Nate Gray and like why he is so important for X-Men fans, especially the ones in the 1990s. Let me explain. You see, when it came to Marvel Comics, when they had created this whole brand new timeline, they've given us a whole brand new versions of different characters that we all know and love so much, like Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Quicksilver, and the list goes on and on. But then you had fans kind of wondering about one certain character, and that would be Cable. How can you bring Cable into this reality? Now, here's the thing, because in the old timeline for Cable, he was the child to Cyclops and Madeline Pryor, and Madeline Pryor was the clone to Jean Grey. Now, the brand new timeline in the Age of Apocalypse timeline, Madeline Pryor does not exist. But on top of that, Jean Grey was not with Cyclops. Jean Grey was with Weapon X, better known as Logan. And so it kind of left fans wondering, how can you bring in, Nate Gray? Now, as we go through our coverage over this event, we do get more and more clues on the whole idea how he was created. But guys, I can go ahead and tell you right now that when it came to Mr. Sinister, what he did was he was able to get his hands on some DNA samples of both Cyclops and Jean Grey and was able to create a child. And that child was Nate Gray. Nate Gray was created in a lab to be used as a way to defeat Apocalypse. And so that right there is how we got this version of Cable in this reality, Nate Gray. And as we go through the different pages of this issue, I will explain different things going on around this point in time in the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Like, for example, when it comes to the opening pages of this issue, we do pick up with, well, Domino. Now remember, in this reality for Domino, she works for Apocalypse. And when it came to Apocalypse, he said, hey, listen, I just got word that there is a powerful mutant out in the West. And that powerful mutant has the ability to, defeat me. And so his main goal is to bring Nate Gray over to his side. And so he sent Domino to go find Nate Gray to recruit Nate. Here's the thing though, if Nate declines, Domino was told to kill off Nate Gray. And so as we get into the opening pages of this book, we're picking up with Domino fighting against this reality's version of Omega Red. And honestly, I'm not going to spend any time explaining who Omega Red in this reality is. Just know that they're kind of hoping that he might have some information about Nate. Now, for Domino, she's not alone. She brought Grizzly and also Caliban. So getting our first look at those two characters as well in this reality. But you do have all three characters being able to defeat Omega Red, but also kind of realize that they were unable to get any kind of information out of him when it comes to finding Nate. And really, we do jump over to Nate Gray. And now when it comes to Nate Gray, we have to remember that in this reality, after he was able to escape from Mr. Sinister's lab, he met a group of characters better known as the Outcasts. Now, the Outcasts are being led by this reality's version of Forge. You also have Sauron, Toad, Brute, Mastermind, and Sonic. Now, technically, Sonic had just joined. It's this reality's version of Teresa Cassidy, better known as Siren in the old timeline, but also the daughter of Banshee as well. Now, here's the thing, because for Nate Gray, after being able to escape from Sinister's lab and joining the Outcasts, Forge and his crew have been going around to different cities out in the West to put on different plays for humans who are just trying their best to survive in Apocalypse Empire, because Apocalypse does rule over North America completely. But as we jump over to Nate Gray, it's him right now training with Forge. Now for Forge, he kind of hates the idea of Nate Gray trying to use his powers. And the reason why, because he believes with Nate trying to use his powers, it's going to catch the eye of Apocalypse. And technically, it already happened. But the thing is, for Forge, he also wants Nate Gray to know how to fight without trying to use his powers, because you can't always rely on your powers to help you out. You might be in a situation where you have to use your fighting skills. And so as we get into this part of the book, we're seeing Nate Gray getting his butt whooped by Forge left and right. Now, after that, you didn't have Nate Gray, I almost said Cable there. You have Nate Gray and also Teresa go meet up with a character known as Essex. Now remember, Essex is, well, just Mr. Sinister, who's currently pretending to be somebody else, who was a bioengineer, who was working for Apocalypse, but now is here to just help out Nate Gray, to help Nate learn more about his abilities. And for Nate, this is great because he wanted somebody there in his corner who wants to help him learn more about his abilities. And so you have really Essex say, hey, Nate, try to see if you have the ability to fly. Show me what you can do with your powers. And so we do get this small example of Nate Gray showing us how powerful he can truly be. And for Essex, he's loving it. But we're also seeing this evil smile because, again, it is Mr. Sinister who's just pretending to be somebody else, who's just here being a nice person to help out Nate Gray. But Teresa realized there is something off about Essex. She saw that evil smile. But you did have everybody being able to come together for a meeting. Now, like I said earlier, when it comes to the Outcasts, they usually go around the West area of America to put on different shows or plays for different groups of humans. But they also go out of their way to find different ways to hurt Apocalypse Empire, like attacking different types of facilities or operations going on across America. And so for Essex, he said, hey, listen, I got an idea. There is a factory nearby. What if we go over to that factory and shut it down? If we do that, that will really hurt Apocalypse in the long run. Now for Forge, it's kind of like, maybe we should not. But Nate Gray is really down with the idea because Nate Gray believes with his powers, he should be able to take down the entire factory. Now, for Forge, it's more of like, let's just go there and observe the place. Let's not try to attack it just yet so that we are able to gather intel about the place and make a better plan. And of course, that plan falls apart because when our heroes, when they go inside the factory, right, they're walking around, you have Essex realize that there are more different types of guards that work for Apocalypse at this factory, the Madre, the Infinites. And so for Essex, he kind of realized we should back out. And also, Forge agrees. The problem is Nate Gray. It's Nate Gray letting that power kind of go to his head, even though he has not fully understand what he can do with his powers just yet. But again, he believes that he has the ability to take everyone down here. But also, he hates what he's seeing right now inside this factory. What's happening to humans inside this factory. But it does lead into our heroes being caught by one of the guards who work inside this factory. And so with that happening, we're now getting into the whole idea of our heroes no longer having a choice here. They have to fight. But it's also Nate Gray kind of using his powers a tad bit reckless. It's him not really showing control over his abilities, but also it's him wrecking the entire factory the best he can. And so as the, battle goes on and you have the factory kind of fall apart, you then have our heroes begin to retreat. But Nate Gray is completely drained of energy. Now, before they do escape, you do have one of the members of the Madre realize how powerful Nate Gray is as a psychic. And so you had this one guy say, I have to inform Apocalypse about this guy. And that's a problem right there because Domino is still out there trying to find any piece of information about Nate Gray. And technically, it seems like she's about to get that piece of information. Now, in the last issue, we had saw Nate Gray being able to use a Psylink, really sending his astral form over to the base of the X-Men, where he had watched an argument go on between Bishop and also Magneto. And the thing was, Nate Gray was technically invisible. They couldn't hear him, they couldn't see him. But this time, it's him wanting to go back there to learn more about that person he saw in the last issue, which was Magneto, because he believes that that Forge and also Essex are trying to just spoon feed him, meaning that they're not allowing him to learn everything he needs to know when it comes to his abilities, but also what he is destined to do. And so you have Nate Gray bring Teresa on one of his Psylink adventures, sending astral forms of themselves over to the old home of Charles Xavier, the base of the X-Men. And so when he does that, you have the two characters walk up behind Magneto, who's just holding his child, because in this reality, Magneto got with Rogue and they had a child together. Now, their child, Charles, he sees Nate Gray. He also sees Teresa as well. And for Magneto, he's kind of like, wait, what? What'd you see, son? And he turns around. He does not see Nate nor Teresa. Now, you do have Teresa go ahead and break the Psylink. And when she does that, it's her saying like, do you know who that man is or was? That is Magneto. He's big time when it comes to fighting against Apocalypse. And so for Nate, he kind of wants to know like, why was Forge and also like Essex, really more Forge, trying to hide the fact of Magneto from him? Like, what is Nate truly destined for? But now we have to jump over to Brute. Now for Brute, the entire time Essex was there, he kind of realized that there was something off about Essex. Like, I think I know him type of thing. And so for Brute, he kind of remembered who Essex was. That Essex is Mr. Sinister, because Brute was in the past tortured by Mr. Sinister. Either way, you do have Brute go to confront Essex. And the thing is, for Essex, he wants to make sure that his cover is not blown. So it kind of left to believe that Essex just killed off Brute to make sure that his cover is not blown. But then as we get into the ending of the book, you have Forge appear. And for Forge, it's more of like, hey, listen, I need you to go ahead and leave. Like, you being around here is bad for Nate. Now, for Essex, he does ask Forge, like, what does Nate want, though? Does Nate want me gone? But while you have the two characters talking to one another, well, Domino appears, and so does Caliban, and also Grizzly. Her entire team is there, and they're kind of like, hey, boys and boys, guess what? We are here for that one powerful mutant. And the book kind of ends on that note right there. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.